All right, I'm going to do a decidedly non-technical approach to the presentation today. So first off, a lot of questions we get from time to time is why should I hire a restoration contractor to handle my insurance claim? And it's very similar to a lot of the things that Jacob was just talking about. First of all, I am a general contractor, so I'm licensed in the state of Georgia to practice general contracting. And that is a big difference. There's a lot of restoration companies running around out there that, for the lack of a better term, are just overblown handyman, okay? They want to come in, they want to try and clean up, they think they're just going to get a big check at the end of the job and scoot on to the next one. Our main focus is restoring your property back to what it was before the loss. And oftentimes it's better than that because the codes and requirements actually a lot of times require us to upgrade. So that's our main focus. And it starts with our initial meeting with the insurance adjuster. So if we can be involved early enough in the process to meet with the insurance adjuster, that's what we want to do. We respect most insurance companies, most insurance adjusters want to take care of their customers. They really do. They want to. They know they're going to write checks that day. All right. They just need to make sure that the check that they write is defensible. Okay. So that adjuster, most of the time, he's going to have the checkbook out. He just needs to know how much to write it for, and he needs to be able to go back to his boss and say, "This is why I wrote this check." And if he can give a good defense of why he wrote that check, typically there's not a problem. I mean, there just really isn't. Most insurance companies or most adjusters aren't out to cheat the customer, okay? But they are going to be very wary of that, about that check. So our goal as your consultant or your contractor is to make sure that we've supplied that adjuster with the proper amount of evidence so that he can go back to his boss and make a substantial case as to why he wrote that check. That, in a nutshell, is kind of why we want to be involved on the front side. Once that adjuster's been out there, once he's written his estimate, once he's written that check, it's a little tougher to start back into that, okay? And I make the analogy all the time about going to court without a lawyer, getting your judgment, and then taking your judgment to the lawyer and saying, "What do you think?" Okay? The lawyer's going to say, "Well, I really wish I'd been there in court with you." Right, Jimmy?
Oh, yes.
Because now we got to try and figure out how to get the genie back in the bottle here. So we do want to be there, if at all possible, when the adjuster's there, because we want to make that case for you. We want to be that lawyer for you. Most of the time, I'll tell you, it's not a contentious relationship. I was talking to you about the claim earlier in my 30-second. We met an engineer out on site after we met the adjuster. The adjuster took 3-4 weeks to write the estimate. He lost his photos. He wrote a pretty shoddy estimate and sent it up to corporate. And corporate said, "Well, this looks good to us," because they'd never been to the house. And they saw a couple of pictures and they don't know what they're looking at. So the customer sent the estimate to us and we said, "No, this is not what we looked at with the adjuster. Why don't you ask them to send an engineer out?" So the engineer came out and he agreed entirely with us. He's seeing crooked walls. He's seeing things that the adjuster just didn't have in the estimate. I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just the fact that it was 3 or 4 weeks before he wrote his estimate. He lost his pictures, and he's just trying to take a stab at it and see if it stuck once he threw it to the wall. So, those kind of interactions typically are not contentious. They're just trying to get the job done. Unfortunately, it takes 3-4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks to get that taken care of. So some of the critical areas we work with, obviously fire. We do a lot of fire damage construction. Fire is a tricky little thing because if you have a major structural fire and you have a lot of structural damage, we're going to be tearing a lot of the stuff down. That's one thing, but it's a whole different thing altogether if you have a kitchen fire or something that smokes up the entire house, because that can do a lot of damage. Everybody's, I think, been in a house where somebody smoked for 15, 20 years. The walls are stained and it smells, and you got to get the smell of the carpet, things like that. Think about that at like 10 times that amount, okay? When you have a kitchen fire, it can be one of 3 types. Usually it's a protein fire. So you burn a turkey or you burn something in the oven, and that protein from that carcass of that animal creates a certain type of smoke. You can have a petroleum-based fire, so you got plastics or things like that that can cause a certain type of smoke. And then you have natural fibers like cotton or maybe the sofa cushions or something like that. So each type of smoke needs a different type of care. Okay, if I go up to a wall that's been exposed to petroleum-based smoke and I try to wipe it off, it's actually going to smear. And it's going to push into the pores of the wall, and it's going to create more of a problem. So if I don't use the right chemicals, we don't have a company out there that's using the right cleaning methods, you're going to actually make the problem worse. Okay? So we need to identify the type of smoke, we need to identify the type of fire that you had. There's all kinds of parameters that go into that. And those are the kind of things we need to make sure the insurance company is aware of and that they're paying for us to do. Otherwise, it's just, oh yeah, just come in and put a couple coats of paint on it, it'll be fine. Well, it won't, okay? Because next summer, when it gets hot, you're going to smell that smoke from that fire all over again. Another area that we work with is water damage. Water damage is one of the big questions I get all the time is this mold? Well, I'm not a clinical scientist who can test mold and see if that's mold or not, okay? But if we do get a hygienist out there to tell us it's mold, we can mitigate it. So there's a lot of things that can cause it. There's three different types of water. There's clean water and there's dirty water, and then there's some water that's kind of in between the two, okay? It's really clear. If you wouldn't drink the water, then it's dirty and we need to deal with it in a different way, all right? So the insurance companies, again, they need to be kind of held by the hand on a situation like that. One of the common things we get is that the toilet water came up out of the bowl, but there was nothing in the bowl floating around, so the insurance adjuster thinks it's clean water. Would you drink it? No, you wouldn't drink it, okay? It's dirty water. It's got bacteria, and it's going to cause more problems than clean water would. So those are kind of things. The last would be storm damage. We do a lot of storm damage repair this time of year with the hail. With the hail comes big storms, comes a lot of wind. Trees get knocked over. So in this city, we have a lot of large old trees. Once their feet get real wet, they're susceptible to the wind and they fall over. So needless to say, a tree striking a house requires a lot of structural changes to the house, requires possibly engineers, possibly foundation repairs and things like that. So you want to hire a professional, you want to hire a general contractor who can dig into those things and knows not only just the general contracting or the structure side of things, but the insurance side of things too. Because if we can't help get the money from the insurance company, then we can't put your home back like it was or better. And that's what we want to do, because we can fix this.com. Thanks, guys.